the H.A.T.A.E Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the H.A.T.A.E Podcast with me, Benjamin Mader. And today we're joined by another guest from the Down Under. It's Grace Kirk. How are you, Grace?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
All good. Thank you very much. As people listening to the podcast know, we don't like messing around on here. So, how did you get into hairdressing, Grace?
How did I get into hair? So my mother, Helen Dunn, who I think has been on a previous episode.
Yes, indeed. Episode 5 with the wonderful Helen Dunn.
She's great. She's obviously a hairdresser, so we always had the joke that I was born with a pair of scissors in my hands.
Yeah.
All my childhood, mum ran her own businesses, so I was just sitting in those salons watching, soaking up everything to do with hairdressing. I think I had my first perm at 2, so
That's
that
the
was
life
funny.
of a hairdresser's child. Both of my parents are hairdressers as well. So you'd
How funny.
find not quite as early as 2, but later on we've got these new colours. Yeah, you want it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You want that one. We'll try that out. So yeah.
Exactly.
So you found that you spent a lot of time sort of around the industry then from quite a young age.
Yeah, it's funny. I was always in the salon, and now having my own children, I feel so bad about that because I think how annoying would that be to have your kid in the salon all the time?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, it was good. And then I guess when I got a mum kind of tried to talk me out of it, I guess in a way, because back then it probably wasn't as glamorous as it is today. It was a lot, it still is hard work, but it was very the same kind of thing over and over again. Like you're doing your full head tints or your perms or your foils. It wasn't as creative, I guess,
Yeah.
in certain ways. But anyway, I still wanted to do it. So mum encouraged me to do my apprenticeship through another salon owner in Torquay. She didn't want me to go through her because she wanted me to branch out. So I did that. Finished up school in year 11, and yeah, I was qualified by 18, which was pretty cool because I guess all your friends are finishing school and figuring out what they want to do, and you're working full time, which is hard, but you're also, independent. You've got your own money to spend, and yeah, you like it's such a fun industry to be in. So
No, definitely. You say you qualified by 18. Is that quite quick by in the Australia, wasn't it? You qualified. Is that quite quick by the Australian standard?
you do a 3-year apprenticeship,
Okay.
but a lot of the time it does drag out because students don't get their work done in time, so they have to extend it. It's actually quite funny because my mum was a teacher by then. She taught at the Gordon TAFE, and she was one of my teachers. So she was super, super hard on me because she didn't want to be that mum that passed everything.
Yeah.
But I used to give my dolly heads, like, because it took so long to get a teacher to come around to sign everything off. I used to go and do like 6 dolly heads in a row and get them all ready so a teacher could come and sign them all off. So I think I was kind of pretty efficient in wanting to get over that line and, be a qualified hairdresser.
No, certainly. And when you did that, was that all through the salon, was it, or were you sort of day release at a college, or where you go one day a week to do your theory and whatnot else, and then go back to the salon, or was it all salon based?
We did 1 day a week at TAFE. I
Okay.
think it was 7 hours, and then the rest of the week was in the salon on the floor.
Yeah. Did you find that
Yeah.
you progressed quite quickly, obviously, with sort of being around it throughout your life? You had seen things, and obviously, I believe there's sort of a thing that does get passed down. Sort of if your mum's got it with the hands, and you'll get it with your hands, type of thing as well. Or did you find certain bits a bit more difficult?
It's quite funny because when I was a teenager, I'd have friends over and mum would be teaching me to foil their hair and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I remember on the first day of my apprenticeship, my boss actually had a half head of foils booked in with me.
Okay.
And I would never, ever, ever in my wildest dreams do that. Like I can't even imagine. But I was just like, yep, all right, let's just get in there and get it done.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's pretty unethical now thinking
The
about
naivety of youth, isn't it?
it.
I'm assuming by that your mum knew that the other salon owner, did they? Was that sort of or knew of the salon anyway? Did she push you towards a certain place?
She did know the owner. But mum kind of knew a lot of the kind of bosses around the Geelong area. But she did. She said Barb's a really good boss, which she was. She was really nurturing and quite mother-like. So yeah, it was really nice in a way, but it was kind of a salon, thinking back now, a lot of us were apprentices. There were a couple of seniors at the time, but I think probably going back to how I was saying, that hairdressing was a bit simpler back then with, putting on a full head tint or a solid cut or half head of foils. Um, you could teach apprentices that quite quickly, make a lot of money from them,
Yeah.
and then keep that going. Whereas now, like, I guess in my business, I only have two apprentices and we really nurture them to make sure it's going to, you want all your clients getting the full experience. It's a lot different now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I wasn't quite in the salon as much, and much the same as you. My parents didn't encourage me at all to become a hairdresser. It was. I mean, I really only fell into it when I was like 22, 21,
Yeah.
22, and it was like, well,
That's
there's not much else to do, so we'll have a go at that. And yeah, it was yeah. Once again, though, it was that thing. I think it was. There's that thing. It used to be. I think it still is. Obviously, very hard work and a bit more of a grind, but it was
mm,
certainly, I think when because I think we're rough. I think probably a little bit older than you, but when our parents were sort of hairdressing, it was really like you're in the salon 16 hours a
yeah,
day, grind, grind, grind.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. So when you sort of finished up your apprenticeship, then did you stay at the salon where you trained for a little while, or did you sort of branch out quite quickly?
So I think when I finished my apprenticeship, I finished straight away at the salon. And I started at another salon in Geelong called Rixon's. It was especially back then known as one of the really high-end salons. And I stayed there for another 3 years. I left when I was 21, just before my 21st birthday. And it was funny, there was two business owners, they were brothers, and yeah, it was a good fun dynamic. But I think when you're young, you think, oh, this is such hard work. I want to break. I want to do something else. So I thought I'm going to stop and do something different. But of course, you get pulled back to hairdressing.
Yeah,
And yeah, and I guess that's where mum still had a little salon at the back of, well, where our actual business is now in Geelong. It was at the back of a back of a family home that I actually grew up in.
yeah,
Um, and now the whole house has been renovated. It's a big salon, like no one lives there. So it's really, really cool. But mum had that little salon there, and my clients were saying, like, where am I going to find you? How can I get my hair done? So I just started doing clients one by one, and all of a sudden I needed staff, and then it grew into my own business.
yeah.
So it was kind of a big accident.
So it grew very organically then. It's like you were saying there, though. I think that is a problem. I mean, with yourself and I, certainly I felt the same as well. At certain points was like, I'm done with this. I'll go do another job, especially because it is
Yeah.
so hard when you're starting out. The pay isn't great, and
Yeah.
you're sort of sitting there watching your friend who's a receptionist in some office somewhere, earning more money and doing nowhere near as much hard work as yourself. It can be very tempting, but I think some people aren't as lucky as yourself and I, and sort of have that other thing to look at. You look at the parents, you think, oh, it's not so bad and whatnot. So, were you out of the industry long, or did you drop out of the industry at all?
I didn't even drop out. I
Yeah,
think I wanted to do all this different stuff, and then it kind of just fell into my lap. In saying that, like how we were just talking about when you're slogging yourself working for someone full time and you're thinking I'm not making that much money, I think you as a employee, you're kind of looking at the computer thinking, I'm making $4,000 for my employee a week and I'm taking home 900. Like, how
yeah,
does that make any sense? And I think then going out on my own, you do learn pretty quickly that all that money gets absorbed.
yeah,
So yeah, it did happen quite instantly, but I think because it happened so organically, the business growing, it was a tough and long journey to kind of become have a business mind when it came to like financially dealing with running a business as well, if that makes sense.
yeah. No, no, absolutely. So how long was
Yeah.
it then? So, but when you sort of you moved back into working in the home salon, for want of a better phrase, how
Yep.
long did it take you then to build up that business from just yourself taking your clients in order to sort of thinking I need to get some staff in here?
Right. So it was funny. So there was myself and then one of my good friends, and we just kind of rented a chair off mum's space for, I would say, 2 years. And then my husband, well, he was my boyfriend at the time, he got a job up in Sydney. So we both moved up to Sydney and worked for O&M for a short time in their head office.
Okay.
Um, I was doing like taking their orders and stuff like that. And then I missed hairdressing. So I went and worked for Renya at a salon called Valon's in Paddington. That was a really cool experience. But then because of that experience, I got to do Kate Blanchett's hair. There was a
Okay.
few famous people that came in. And I think because then when Instagram had kind of kicked off, I was posting that stuff. When we came back to Victoria, probably 4 or 5 months later, people started really coming in like quick and hot, I guess. And which was really cool. And they started trusting me and wanting to book in. So I think it probably from when I went in there, moved to Sydney, came back, it was probably 4 years. And then I put an apprentice on first. And then Candice, who's now my business partner, came and worked as a second senior. And then, yeah, we opened the salon and then opened Barwon Heads. It kind of just all happened really quickly from there.
Yeah. So once the ball got rolling, it was quite, quite a quick process then. So
It,
when you started working there in Sydney and South, how did you find that it worked differently to the places you worked before? Obviously, Sydney being the sort of, I mean, you're very close to Melbourne, aren't you? And where you are now,
yeah,
but Sydney obviously being a sort of big city in Australia.
yeah.
Did you find that you worked differently, or the clients were different, or anything like that?
Clients were definitely different, and I think that just came from being a completely different demographic. And any hairdresser would relate to this. Like when you have your loyal clientele that you see all the time that trust you, they come in and they say you can do whatever you want and how good that is. And then you go to a new area where no one knows or trusts your work, and especially somewhere like Paddington where they're quite wealthy and glamorous people, very, very fussy. I found that really tricky. It kind of it gets your confidence down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, and that was tough for me. The way they ran their salons wasn't that different, but I was surprised in the kind of yeah, I was surprised in how heavily like the bookings were put in, like compared to kind of, I guess, salons now that spread their appointments and take their time a lot more with people. But yeah, it was different. But I think that just came from being a different kind of demographic of clientele as well.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you say about then and the bookings of appointments and things. I think that's something that's we've had to change as an industry, really, haven't we? Is because, like you say, it's gone from that root tint, put a couple of rollers in, leave her under the dryer. We can squeeze a quick cut in between that. It's
Absolutely.
changed a lot with the services we're having to offer, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I found I used to really be quick. Like I used to be a lot faster. And I even with staff, it used to really like trigger me in a way when younger staff would be like, I need more time for this. And you'd think, time's money. Do you know what I mean? And it's getting out of that mentality. And now I kind of think, oh, having like an hour and a half for a full head of foils and then like and half an hour tone is awesome. Like, because you get those results and you kind of need that extra time now with the extra services. So yeah, it's funny. You do have to adapt to the new ways.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it's a thing. It's a bugbear of mine, and the theory that I came up with. We never changed our pricing structure as an industry since the sort of
Yeah.
fifties or sixties.
Yeah.
It was, as I always say, you think how many your mum would certainly remember. You have ladies who come in for their shampoo and set every week, their blow dry every week, every 4 weeks is
Yeah.
a colour, every 6 weeks is a cut, every 12 weeks is a perm. It's
Yeah.
they're in every week. So you've got
Yeah.
such smaller clientele and you're getting that turnover of cash out of each individual. Whereas
Absolutely.
now you're lucky if you see people 3, 4 times a year sometimes.
For sure. And even with that pricing structure these days, it's so funny because I feel like um in I'm like kind of from that era where you didn't charge a bomb to get your hair done, but the quality is probably better than a lot of the younger, oh, I shouldn't say better, everyone's at their different level, but let's put mum for an example. Like I said to mum a few weeks back, she's got her loyal clientele, but I'm like, you've got students that you're teaching how to cut hair, and they go and charge their customers 3 times what you're charging your customers.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, like that, yeah, that mentality that we have of like, how can you charge like $400 for a color? But then that's kind of where it's moving. It's funny, it's hard to find that kind of, yeah, how to charge out things properly, I guess now.
I think it is, especially at the moment because we are on the turn. That's where we're at. We're at that very difficult point. I think in 5 to 10 years' time, it's just that's how much it's going to cost. I think as
Yeah.
well, given the shortage of, I mean, I'm assuming that Australia is the same. I'm here in America. I know the UK has the same problem. Is there a shortage of people coming into the industry there?
I think there's no shortage, but I think there's a shortage of people staying for longer than a year or so.
Okay.
Um, Definitely I think post like pandemic and all that stuff, people don't want to work full time anymore.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way, like with even our seniors and our renter chairs and everything at the salons, we're super flexible. We're like, if you want to work 40 hours in 3 days, or you want to work, or if you want to work part-time and run your own show, you can do that. But with new hairdressers coming into the industry, like working 41 hours is like insane.
Yeah.
Like I even had an apprentice start a couple of weeks ago. She's absolutely beautiful. But the poor thing at the end of her first week, she's like, my back is so sore. Like I can't walk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, take a couple of days off. But it's just so different, I think, back then to where we're like, let's just get in there and suck it up.
Yeah. No, we're on the changeover generation. I think yourself and I, because
Yeah.
it's gone from the sort of the lunacy, as sometimes I see it, as what our parents'
Yeah.
generation did, into the lunacy at the other end of the scale, what is maybe expected from other people. So I don't know. It'll swing
Absolutely.
back eventually. I'm convinced of it. We'll end up in a good place for everyone. I think eventually.
Sure. And it's not a bad thing. Like, I
No.
think the way we used to work was absolutely like there was no balance in a way. And I guess, you'd go out and drink all weekend and then come and be tired all week and do it all again. You need a work-life balance. And everyone, I guess, these days wants to be heard and appreciated, which is completely fair. So yeah, hopefully it'll meet back into some kind of middle ground
Yeah.
eventually. Like,
Oh, I think it will. Is I mean, someone said years ago, and I thought it was a brilliant thing. Is people want the work-life balance, but without the work.
yes,
That's the thing.
yeah,
So eventually it will swing back. I'm convinced. I'm
absolutely.
convinced of it. So when you
Yeah.
sort of you started taking apprentices and whatnot, and how long ago was that? Then you took on your first apprentice in your business.
So my first employee was an apprentice.
Yep.
She stayed with me for 6 years, which was really cool. Um, and I guess we've kind of it's really funny. I don't know if looking back to my apprenticeship where it was nearly an apprentice run salon, that's almost made me go the opposite way. I'd probably rather have seniors on and a couple of apprentices to assist and help the salon run. But we've probably put on like, we've always had one at a time, but it's never been like a salon full of apprentices. And we do get them on the floor quite quickly as they are ready.
Yeah.
Um, I think we train them obviously in washing and blow drying first and then like applying a tint or whatever. And it's all very organic and gradual, but I think it's important to get them confident and not to lose that confidence and wait too long to get on the floor because then they are scared to do it, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. It's a balancing act, isn't it? Is
Yeah.
you don't want to put someone sort of straight into the lion's den, so to speak, as say yourself
Yeah.
was there. Got half head of highlights on your first day. Thank you very much.
Gosh.
But also you want to see a steady progression, don't you? It's a very
Absolutely.
it's a very
I
very
think
good
I
thing.
remember putting on like a tint in my first couple of weeks, and it was someone wanted to go bright red, and I put on a bright red color, and I didn't know that tint didn't lift tint. So she came out with these like bright red roots and dark ends, and I thought, now looking back, I'm like, what? What kind of like, how does that happen? But
Yeah, absolutely.
I
People
guess
pay good
it
money for
teaches,
that now.
yeah, it teaches you pretty quickly.
That's it. With your apprentices, do you run the education yourself, or do you run it through your mum, or do you run it through another organisation?
So yeah, our apprentices train through mum's training. They do 1 day a week, kind of like what we do. We did back in the day. And then we try and either myself or Candice, my business partner, will try and get them working with us, watching or shadowing us a little bit if we can. Or, other seniors within the salon will train them during the week as well.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned that you got a business partner. Are they also a hairdresser? Is how did that partnership come together?
Yeah, so Candice is one of my best friends. She actually we grew up together when we were younger. She lived in Sydney when I did, and then when I came back and needed another senior to work with me, Candice came and worked in the home salon. And then it was funny because I live down in Ocean Grove, which is a coastal town at the bottom of Victoria, and close to there's a town called Barwon Heads. It's quite like probably like the Portsea of the other side of Victoria. It's quite nice. And anyway, I always wanted to own a salon close to home. And I had this guy who used to come and steam clean our carpets at our house, and his wife owned the only salon in Barwon Heads. And I used to say to him, when she's ready to sell, you tell me because we'll look into it. And probably like 4 or 5 times later, he goes, she's ready to sell. And I thought, all right, well, I'll ask Candice. It was like a sliding doors moment. If he didn't do my carpets, that would have never happened.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I asked Candice if she wanted to go into business with me, and yeah, she did, and it's been really, really good.
yeah. How do you find that was? Do you sort of share the equal responsibilities for everything, sort of running the business side and running the sort of the hairdressing side, or do you sort of each take your certain area that you go with?
So on the floor, we probably because I have the Geelong salon by myself and Candice is involved in the Barwon Heads salon. She works 3 days in Barwon Heads and I do two. And then as far as kind of like backside of things go, like I do the pays and things like that. Candice helps with the ordering. I think when you've got a business partner, nothing's ever 50-50. Sometimes she's doing more, sometimes I'm doing more. But I think we are really good communicators. We prioritize our friendship over everything. Um, and I think understanding that it's never going to be 50-50, like we've both got families and children. So yeah, we work really well with just kind of if you can't do something, it to the other one or vice versa.
Yeah, that's brilliant because that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, especially in business partnerships.
Yeah.
Is that thing of one does one bit, one does the other, then the other one thinks the other one's not doing what they
Yeah.
should, and vice versa, and it can all become a bit of a mess. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting
Yeah.
dynamic. So,
Especially
carry on.
the money too, because if money and like what people like, I guess what you give and take from the business, you're just going to end up focusing on things that don't really matter. Like you're better off, I guess, yeah, if everyone's getting done, everything's all good. That's my opinion anyway.
Absolutely, it's probably the best way to do it. Is you start thinking about how everything's going. Oh, has that been done? This been done? Is it working? Yep, perfect. That's what it needs to do.
Absolutely.
Now, you say you've got a
Yeah.
couple of salons there. What sort of services do you offer? So I know one of them is a salon that was the old house, and the other one now is that a smaller operation than the other one, or is it a different operation?
So Style and Grace Barwon and Geelong, they almost run fairly the same. We do have more staff in the Geelong salon and we have two renter chairs. And the girls who rent a chair actually previously worked for me as well. They kind of developed their own, and I'm quite open with that. I'm like, do you know what? If you want to go and work for yourself, I'd rather you start than go somewhere else because it's much of a muchness, really. But yeah, so Geelong's slightly bigger. It's a bigger location, and Barwon Heads probably has one or two less staff. I think there's 6 girls in there altogether, but the way that they run and operate is pretty much identical.
Yeah.
And as far as like services and stuff go, I guess it's just your like cuts, colors, lots of foils, lots of blondes, balayage, and we do heaps of hair extensions now, which is really fun.
Yeah. So you were saying there, you mentioned hair just before we started. Actually, you mentioned hair extension. Just about to launch a hair extension brand, aren't you?
Yes, so Candice and I are about to launch at the end of July our own extension line. It's called Candice Grace Hair Extensions. And we wanted to put our own name to it because we love them so much. We've been trialing them for ages. They come straight from Eastern Europe from one donor. There's virgin hair and premium, like hair that's just been treated to smooth and color.
Okay.
They haven't been treated as much as the normal hair extensions and all hand sewn. So it's really beautiful hair to work with, and we're just so excited.
Absolutely. Was that a decision to go into that because you're doing so much extension work within the salons? Was that a decision or a thing that helped you launch the brand or decided to launch it?
Yeah, definitely. And we've worked with quite a few different brands of extensions before. I think the hardest thing when they're coming from big factories is the quality and consistency can sometimes be compromised. And we are really, really big on working with and providing with the best on the market. And we wanted to find that to use because we all know as hairdressers, when we create something we love, it makes our job even more exciting too. So I guess it kind of stemmed from that and just, yeah, wanting to bring something to Australia that's easy to access to other hairdressers. Like it's really hard to go online and buy a weft of virgin hair if if you're another hairdresser to give to your client. So this will kind of be a wholesaling website too, which is cool.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll put the information for that in the show notes and whatnot when we get this out. So with that, is it more of a take home service that these extensions are for, or is it like an in salon service?
It's an in-salon service, so it's using sewn in weft extensions. They're you use kind of beads to make a track on the hair, and then you sew the wefts on. So it's a semi-permanent kind of thing that you have them moved up every 4 to 6 weeks, and yeah, they're really good for like any woman really. It's funny, I just put 200 grams of hair in my friend that has the thickest hair on the planet, and I thought it really does make any hair look amazing.
Nice, that's fantastic. Did you find any challenges setting up that business or starting to set up that business in return in sort of regards to sourcing hair, like you say, finding that place in Eastern Europe you're able to deal with or importing hair or anything like that?
Um, I guess the only like we've tried a few different companies until we found one we loved. The only kind of challenges, I guess, is the fact that they're over in Eastern Europe. So talking to them is at like 8 or 9 or 10 p.m. at night. So getting back in that communication's that a little bit tough, but obviously that's part of the business. That's fine. And just the kind of turnaround time. So to have any hair arrive to us, it takes 3 to 4 weeks. So that's the only thing that we're trying to get our heads around at the moment is like stock levels, making sure that we can keep on top of that so we're not out of stock for 4 weeks and things like that.
Absolutely. Are you going to be using them exclusively within your salon? Like you say, a wholesale operation? Is that just for Australia at the moment, or are you looking to ship elsewhere in the world as well?
Yeah, we'll ship worldwide. We want any hairdresser to have access to this hair and quickly. That's kind of one of our goals within the business is to, yeah, make it super accessible. We definitely want to branch out to anyone that would love to stock them. We're going to provide education if people are after it. So, yeah, we'll just see where it takes us really. Like, first and foremost, we got started it so we can use the hair. So, I don't know, I kind of believe if you're doing something with love and excitement, it kind of just takes its own course.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth sharing, isn't it? Like you say, if you can provide something that's of a high quality and something that's going to improve the sort of certainly the image and the hairdressing industry as a whole, it's certainly worthwhile doing. So
Absolutely.
you say yourself that. So you just work a couple of days in the salon now. Was there a time when you decided to sort of pull back a little bit from maybe working on the floor as much?
Yeah, so at the moment I do 3 days on the floor.
Yep.
I've got two little girls, so one's 2.5 and one's 4. So they're my full-time job.
Yeah.
But I think hairdressing keeps me sane. I love going and working on the floor. It's like my identity outside of motherhood. Um, but yeah, Wednesday's my admin day, so I do all the pays. There's always something you need to do for the business. Pre-kids, I was working 12 hours every day. I just thought, or whenever I could, or whenever I could fit people in, I'd work. But yeah, I had a big break during having the girls, and I think 3 days at the moment's good for my mental health and for
Yeah,
my soul.
absolutely. I'm sure. Did you find that once you once you became a mother and then you sort of cut that, did you find the way you ran the business changed at all?
Yeah, I actually have said this to a couple of clients. I feel like I am a way better hairdresser post having children. And I think that is because I appreciate my creative time on the floor. I appreciate you're a lot more patient, well, I am. I think it's a special time that you get to go away and be who you were before being a mum. I love being a mum, don't get me wrong. It's the best job on earth. They're the best. But yeah, going and being creative and being part of a team and getting out there, it's awesome. So I do think it has changed, but for the better.
Absolutely. How did you find? I mean, I'm assuming you did this anyway. Sort of being able to sort of condense your clientele down, whilst you're doing that. Did you find that was a difficult job to do, or was it something that you had sort of prepared and sort of managed to wean people off yourself, or fit people in a different way?
Yeah, I think that so leading up to, I guess, when we had to go and close the businesses for a few years, that was during the pandemic. I was pregnant with my first child. So my clients were already kind of mentally preparing, and I was handing them over to some of the other girls while I was going to be on maternity leave. But I think having those 2 years of uncertainty and people didn't really see anyone constantly anyway, that probably helped um, when I came back to work. And it's funny, I was actually looking at the appointment book this morning thinking I am booked out for a long time now, but it's taken probably another 2 years to really get to that point again where I've got my loyal same clientele consistently. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, certainly because I know a lot of people now work like you said. They sort of bring it down, and it's a very very difficult task in order to sort of like say it's sort of rearrange your clientele. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
it's
And
it,
they say they're like, don't you have another baby? Like you can't
yeah,
go
yeah,
anywhere.
absolutely. You're there for them. You know,
Yeah.
that's quite right. You know, why would you want to
Yeah.
have a family or a life or anything like that? Why would you do such a thing? So where can people find out more about you and your salons and your new extension brand then, Grace?
Well, at the moment, we're just getting the Instagram set up. This is for the hair extension brand. It's at Candice Grace Hair Extensions, and the website's just been created at the moment, www.candicegracehairextensions.com.au. And then as far as the salons go, we have an Instagram too, Style and Grace Hair and Style by Barwon Heads. And you can kind of, yeah, I guess from there, there's the website and you can see what kind of work we do. We have a really good team. I'm like, Candice and I are so lucky to have beautiful, like kind and talented staff. So yeah, you can jump on and see what anyone's up to on there.
Wonderful stuff. Well, like I said earlier, we'll put all the links to all the communication stuff in the comments
Yeah.
for this particular post. But it's been delightful having you on, Grace. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I know it's early in the morning there. Well, it's early in the evening here. So yeah, have a great day. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Cheers.
Bye bye.